Philo of Alexandria, also called Philo Judaeus, was a Greek-speaking Jewish philosopher born between 15 and 10 BC and died between 45 and 50 AD. He was the most important representative of Hellenistic Judaism. Hellenistic Judaism was a classic era of Judaism that combined Jewish religious traditions with Greek culture. People today still agree that his writings provide one of the clearest views of the development of Judaism and the dispersion of Jews throughout the world. He argues that the only way to have a real existence in the human world is to accept that without God's help, we are truly worthless. He states that God gave us freedom and people the ability to have consciousness. In order to understand Philo's importance, some historical background is critical for context. During the period in time when Philo lived, anxiety and different ethnic tensions existed in Alexandria. The Romans had replaced the Macedonians, leaving the Greeks with a fiscal advantage over everyone else. The Greeks, in turn, pretended to be the only civilization in the city that mattered and denied citizenship to the Jews. There were, however, a few exceptions, one of which was the tax collector, who was Philo's brother. He was the wealthiest man in the city, and Philo was accepted as a citizen in the prestigious city as his family was prominent. It is important to note that Philo was not only a scholar and a rabbi lecturing peacefully in synagogues, he was also very much involved in the disasters of 38 AD, including the violence that was occurring between the Greeks and Egyptians. At the time, Philo considered the Egyptians disgusting because of their beliefs in zoolatry and was full of fear towards the Romans. The Alexandrian Jews were enthusiastic to have their children participate in Greek activities, athletics, and liberal arts. But in joining these activities, the Jewish people had to make a compromise with their traditions. Philo was educated, and historians believed that he would accredit his education to the likes of Moses. Philo in his writing states little of his own Jewish education, except for the mention of how relatively weak the Jewish schools were that met on the Sabbath for homilies and ethics. Philo did clearly affirm that he was an observant Jew and that citizens should observe any of the Jewish customs that were divinely ordained. One of the most distinguishable events in Philo's life happened when he was likely 39 or 40 after a violent riot in Alexandria against the Jews. Philo spoke to the emperor Caligula at the embassy, begging him to reassess the Jewish rights that were previously granted by the rulers of Egypt. Philo's request was rejected, and he was prepared to be charged with the punishment of disloyalty, and he told his delegate not to be worried. He stood strong in his stance. He was not discouraged because he believed God would punish Caligula, who did in fact die shortly after. He was assassinated. Philo created a number of original theologic writings, including spiritual essays and homilies, philosophical and religious essays, and eulogies of contemporary subjects. Most important of his writing for Judaism are the Bible Antiquities, which are creative reconstructions of Jewish history from Adam to the death of Saul, the first king of Israel. Through Philo's writing, he laid the foundation for the development of Christianity in the West and East as we know it today. Philo preached that the Bible should not be taken literally and used allegorical interpretations of the law. Christians regarded him as a forerunner in Christian theology. It is incredible that although we know little about the details of Philo's life, we have learned about his influence on Judaism because his writings were meticulously preserved by the church. When looking at the impact a person has on the world from so long ago, it is extraordinary that his influence is still relevant and valued. Philo wasn't a traditional philosopher, nor was he brought up in a Jewish school. However, he preserved his Jewish traditions in a time where that was difficult and contrary to the majority of citizens in his era. Philo's last contribution of Jewish identity, in my opinion, is miraculous because through his writings he made it relevant and everlasting.